Okay, let's practice graphing lines. Now we're going to graph lines like this one, y equals negative 2x plus 3, right? This line is written in slope-intercept form. If you remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, all right? And it's real easy to find the slope in one of these lines because the slope is the number that sits right next to the x. And so in our case, the slope would be negative 2. And the y-intercept is the number that stands by itself. And in our case, the y-intercept would be 3. So let's graph a couple of these lines in slope-intercept form. And then let's graph a line in standard form. Now, let me scoot that out of the way. And we will draw our x and y axis. All right, so here's my y-axis, and here is my x-axis. Now, when you graph a line in slope-intercept form, the first thing you do is to graph the y-intercept, and the y-intercept is actually a point on your line, and it's the point where the line crosses the y-axis. So we're going to go up the y-axis 3 units, all right? Let me label these right here so we don't forget which one's x and which one's y. So we go up the y-axis to the number 3 because that is our y-intercept. And now we're going to start at the number 3. So we're going to start at this point, and we're going to use the slope to get another point. Now remember that slope is change in y over change in x. That's what slope is. And so in our case, the slope is negative 2. Well, a negative 2 can be written as negative 2 over 1 or 2 over negative 1. All right, well, if I write it as negative 2 over 1, then I'm saying my change in y is going to be down 2. So I start at my y-intercept, I go down 2, and then my change in x is a positive 1, so I go to the right 1. So down 2 from my y-intercept and to the right 1, and there's another point on my line. And with this, I can draw my line. Now, you could have used the slope as 2 over negative 1. This would mean that you go up 2 from your y-intercept, 1, 2, and then you go to the left 1. So I'll go up 2 and to the left 1. Either way, doesn't matter. You don't have to do both. You only need 2 points to create a line. And once you have at least 2 points, then you can draw your line. All right? So this is how you would graph. Now I'm being very careful here. I'm trying to be very careful. It's kind of hard. Lighting's kind of weird. But this is how you would graph a line in slope-intercept form. Now let's do another one. Let's do another line. Let's suppose that you have something like this. Y equals 2/5 x. Now, in this line equation, it doesn't appear that there's a y-intercept. All right, but there always is. There always is when your line is in slope-intercept form, and this is clearly solved for y. This is solved for y. Therefore, it is a line equation in slope-intercept form, but there's no number sitting here. Well, don't forget that anytime there's not a number, there really is a number. It's the number 0. And so 0 is actually my y-intercept. So I'm going to start at 0, which is my origin. And then I'm going to use my slope, which is 2/5, to get my next point. So I start at the origin, and I go up 2 and to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've found my next point. So up 2 and to the right 5. I could have gone down 2 and to the left 5, but remember your slope, change in y is the top number, and the change in x is the bottom number. And I can draw my line. Now, when you draw your lines, technically you should have arrowheads on the ends of the lines. And also, don't ever draw your line from end point to end point and just stop there. That's a bad idea. Your line is a set of an infinite number of points, and you need to show that. All right, well, let's turn our little piece of paper over here. Let's do a line in standard form. All right, so let's say that we have 3x minus y equals 6. Now this line equation is written in standard form. I could solve it for y very easily and put it in slope-intercept form, but most of the time when you have a line given to you in standard form, the best way to graph that line is using the x and y intercepts. This is how we graph lines in standard form. All right, now remember the x-intercept of a line is where the line crosses the x-axis. So for that, 0 would be in the y position. So you're looking for where the line crosses the x-axis. 0 would be the y coordinate of that point. So to find the x-intercept, I just let y be 0. If I cover up the y, if I act like the y is not there, then I have 3x equals 6. Well, when I solve that, I get x equals 2. So that means that the x-intercept is 2, 0. All right, well, let's plot that point, 2, 0. I go over 2. All right, now let's get the y-intercept. All right, well, the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. I do not have to solve the equation for y to find that. I simply have to, here again, let x be 0. Cover up my x and solve for y. Well, then I have negative y equals 6, so y equals negative 6. All right, so this would be my y-intercept. So I'm going to come all the way down to negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right there where my arrowhead of my line is. So let's let him go on down here. All right, and there's my negative 6. And so I'm going to connect negative 6 until I'm going to connect my x and y intercepts. Now, I'm going to draw the line through there. All right, and there's my line going through the x and y intercepts. Now, I'm sure it looks like my line is stopping at this point, but it really isn't. It's just what you can see on the screen. All right, let's do one more line in standard form. So here's a line in standard form. 2x plus 4y equals 7. Let's graph that line. All right, he is in standard form. So so I want to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. All right, to find the x-intercept, I let y be 0. So if I let y be 0 in this case, all right, cover up my y, then I've got 2x equals 7. Well, if 2x equals 7, then I divide by 2, and I get x equals 3.5. That's okay. 3.5 is not hard to graph. All right, now let's do my y-intercept. I'll let x be 0, and then I'll solve for y. Well, y is going to equal 7 over 4, or 1 3/4. That's not hard to graph either. All right, so let's find these numbers. So when x is 3.5, y 0, so 3.5, 1, 2, 3.5. All right. And then y is 1 3/4. All right, so on the y-axis, 1 3/4 would be right about here. Now, if you would like to, because this is 1 3/4, if you would like to really have a little more accuracy with your graph, you can count by halves on this y-axis, all the way up and down the y-axis, and you can find 1 3/4 that way. Remember that you do not have to count by ones on both the x and the y-axis. You can change how you divide up your line. I'm just going to leave mine the way it is. I think this is fine for our purposes. All right, so we're going to connect these dots, and we have a line, another line that we graphed in standard form using x and y intercepts.